teased earlier that maybe we'd ask you what it's like to be the boss of Spider-Man, Shark Tank, Smurfs, Lyle Lyle Crocodile. What's it like?
Well, Spider-Man is Tom Holland, who is a great kid, great guy. He's like 26 now, but he's terrific. In fact, he's filming here right now. I've been trying to chase him down somewhere in New York City. I'm not sure exactly where. I was trying to track him down this week, and he hasn't responded to my text, so I guess that tells you the answer.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you had to describe today's environment, is it more like, I don't know if these are fair, Smurfs, kind of happy, Shark Tank, kind of rough, Spider-Man, hopeful?
Okay. Those are
Do
good.
any of those, how would you describe today's environment right
Well,
now?
you've
seen a lot.
It is interesting that different times, different environments in the world do lend to the popularity of certain genres of film and television.
Absolutely.
Right now, I think people, and it's hard to know because this is definitely an art, not a science, as you know that. I think people are looking for some more lighthearted things, some more interesting things, maybe some romantic comedies. One just opened, not ours, unfortunately.
Yeah.
With George Clooney and Julia Roberts doing very well. We do have a kind of a rom-com coming up with Jennifer Lawrence, which is actually taping or filming in Long Island at the moment. So that'll be a good one. It is interesting right now. Interesting, challenging, from the perspective of what you think is going to work. If you read the press, everyone talks about how in theaters the only thing that's working is the big tentpoles, the Spider-Mans, the Top Guns. But it's not true. We had 4 films this summer that did really well, and they were all originals.
Yeah.
So.
But it's funny. I was actually talking with our Lucas Shaw. We were talking about. It feels like my husband says the same thing. Why do I go to the theater? It's all heroes, superheroes, or horror. That are the real money.
Well, Where the Crawdads Sing was a film we put out this summer.
Yes.
Did really, really well. The Woman King did really, really well. Certainly not a hero. Well, it's a hero. Viola Davis plays the hero, but it's not a superhero movie. It's a kind of a based on truth and history. Lyle Crocodile, you mentioned, is if you have kids between 5 and 12, great film to go see. And interestingly enough, in the U.S., not working terribly well, but internationally working really well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a dichotomy there.
Well, it's good that you went there, Tony, because you guys are global, right? Different markets. I know you and I talked on our planning call a lot about what's going on in India specifically.
Right.
So when you look at the global sphere, right, it is not smart of us. I know I asked global recession.
Yeah.
There's going to be areas that are rougher than the others. When you look at the world, how do you see it?
Well, Spider-Man, which we released last December, almost a year ago, did almost $2 billion in box office without China. In the past, they probably would have done between $400 and $500 million in China.
Right.
We don't have Russia anymore.
Right.
Russia was our top 5 markets. So, it's a challenge, but, you have to go with what you have.
How do you think about those markets? Because I do think about the importance of content.
Yeah.
We think about it certainly as a news organization. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of it troubling. What do you see as your role in terms of the narrative and the conversations that are going on in a world where we have some really tricky topics?
Well, we try not to get too much into politics. And, in my past life, I was very involved in news coverage and TV stations and things. And I'm very happy not to be in that business right now. It's a difficult world. It's a difficult.
Well, what about, you talk about China, right? And you guys are not.
Well, mostly not.
Or mostly not.
We didn't have Venom. Our film Venom didn't get into China. Spider-Man didn't get into China. The first Venom did $275 million in box office in China, 0 the second time.
Well,
so, it's not a market that we expect to do business in right now. It's roiled in geopolitical relations, obviously, and something that we're not going to have any impact on.
Well, and that's what I guess, what is the role of companies that are global? And when there's either a part of the world, a country, where there's issues, I say that delicately, is it your responsibility to say, obviously when there's governments involved and saying you can't do business here or whatever, that's a whole other issue. But, what is the role of companies when you can have such an impact in terms of what you do and you reach so many different people? Do you feel like a responsibility to not be in a certain market because of...
Well, Russia, we did pull out of
Russia.
Russia.
You did, right, as most people did.
Most people
but
did.
would you go back? Do you anticipate?
Well, we've sold our businesses there, so we're not in Russia.
Right.
And I don't anticipate getting back there anytime soon.
Okay.
But I wouldn't predict that forever. I mean, the world does change. We are doing business in Germany. We had World War II, so things do change.
Yeah. Same thing. You think China will change?
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't have a good sense of what's happening there.
The markets don't either. I feel like
we will have no impact as to how that happens.
All right, so talk to me a little bit about your strategy, because you guys, your profit came out this week, Outlook.
Did pretty good.
Yeah, you did. You pumped up.
Yeah.
It's a good week. A few reasons, including that movies, music, and TV have slowly crept up to become the major profit driver over the past year.
For the Sony Group as a whole, yes.
For the Sony Group
Yeah.
over. But that's also your world.
Includes our world as well, yes. So, 5 years ago, we took a strategy that we were heavily criticized for, saying that everyone had to be in the streaming business. We decided, and by the way, we are in the streaming business, so we'll talk about that a little bit later, but in a profitable way as opposed to most companies today. We decided to not go into the streaming business because we saw all of our competitors jumping into this pool, and they were taking all of their product and putting it on their services. And I learned a long time ago, you can't program a streaming service or a network or a broadcast network or a cable network yourself. You have to have outside help. You have to have outside producers do it. So we decided to go as what we euphemistically call the arms dealer of the business. So
you're happy to supply to everybody.
Happy to supply to everybody, and it's turned out remarkably well. We've had 5 unbelievably successful years. We started out with about $250 million in profit, and last year we did $2 billion in 5 years. So this year won't, but that included Spider-Man, and included a couple of other big things that won't be repeated this year. But we're going to have a very good year this year as well.
When you said you guys weren't going to do streaming, like directly have a service.
General entertainment streaming,
right? Right. Were you given a hard time about?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Internally and externally, but it was very clear that somebody had to do that. When we sold our Pay One film package, which is the window following theatrical and home entertainment, we had 6 bids for it because nobody else was selling their product, and it was arguably the best Pay One deal that's ever been done in the film world. So our company's in pretty good shape.
I was thinking about, too, we were talking, Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. This was great for you guys.
Yes.
And
for Jerry.
And for Jerry. But an incredible series that just continues to churn money.
It's in its 7th cycle right now.
It's unbelievable.
Yes.
And you guys benefited from it. Big time.
Yes.
Can you create, do you feel like, something of that stature again, with that kind of payoff in this environment?
The TV business has changed 180 degrees. It's gone from, having run a broadcast network, the Fox network, for 10 years. The business revolved around the upfront period, April and May, where you decided on what programs you're going to put on your network. You marketed them to advertisers, then you put them on the air in September, and then you hopefully got 5 seasons out of them. And you deficit financed those programs, meaning you sold them to a network for less than the network would pay, for less than the cost of the program. The network would pay less than the cost of the program. So today, it's the exact opposite. Now you sell a program for what's called a premium, where whatever the production cost is, you get a premium on top of that. You don't deficit finance for the most part. There's a few shows still doing that, but you do it on a premium basis, and you license it for a long time. And we've gone from 22 to 24 episodes of program to 8 or 10, sometimes 6, and you get 2 or 3 seasons instead of hopefully the 5 or 6 that you might have. We have several shows going right now that are still in the old mode. The Goldbergs, it's in its 10th season. Blacklist is in its 10th season. SWAT and Good Doctor are in their 6th season. So, they're still there, but not to the degree they were. And those will eventually not be there either. And the world has changed in the television business.
Speaking of changes, I was thinking about just some of the headlines that we've had over the last couple of weeks. Rupert Murdoch wanting to put Fox News and News Corp back together again. Yep. Mark Zuckerberg all in on Meta, spending billions that we know will cost the company for a while. And a lot of investors look at the share price, people questioning that move. Meta and Snap jumping out of an FCC commissioner wants the U.S. to
Block
ban
TikTok,
TikTok, right? Streaming, moving more and more aggressively into live sports. So you were also on the investment side of TPG, looking out for the next big thing. So what do you think is most striking about what's going on in the media world that you think just a general audience, anybody who runs a business needs to know about, and kind of where we're going?
Well, we talked about the television business.
Yeah.
On the film side, it's also changed, not to the same drastic degree, but theatricality has risen dramatically. In order to get people to get out of their chairs or sofas, to get in a car, to drive to a theater, to park, to go into the theater, buy the popcorn, you have to have a draw.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that the product you're putting on the screens in those theaters is a draw, and it's hard. It's really hard.
But you guys are still committed to it.
We're very committed to it, and we think, right now we're in what we call the COVID intermission, because 2 years ago we weren't producing a lot of films because of COVID.
Right.
And now is when those films would have been in theaters. That's why you don't see a lot of films in theaters today. But if you put a good film in the theater, people are going to see it. You're going to see in late November, December, January, a lot of business in theaters. You're going to see, Black Panther and Avatar and a couple of other films that are going to do extraordinarily well. Then you're going to see.
But those are again those big tentpoles, right?
Those are big tentpoles.
Yeah.
And what we really need to see is a bunch of films in theaters at the same time.
Yeah.
Going back to the way it was before March 2020, and you'll start to see that in May of next year, late April, May, through the summer. You're going to see 4 or 5 good films in the theater at the same time that people will go see, and I think you'll see the rebound.
Show of hands, last time, or who's been to a theater recently? Who hasn't been?
50-50, yeah.
All right, 50-50.
Yeah, right.
Does that say a lot to you, or what does it say to you?
It says that there have not been enough films in the theaters to draw people. Because if you put a good Top Gun, who saw Top Gun? Well,
at home?
Theater.
Theater.
Gotta see that in the theater.
Okay.
Yeah, gotta see it in the theater.
Yeah.
People will go to theaters to see films that they want to see. And Woman King has done tremendously well, as I said, and also Where the Crawdads Sing did great.
Right.
I mean, it was a very nice film. Bullet Train did very well. So all original films, not superhero films.
Talk to me about Bullet Train, because you guys did that during the pandemic.
We did.
And you
before vaccines.
Right, and like nobody was doing it, and you did it on the studio lot.
We did.
With Brad Pitt.
With Brad Pitt.
In a mask.
In a mask.
Did he look good?
Well, you would have to be the judge of that.
I'm sure he looked good. No, but I mean, what was that like? Why did you knew you just had to move through with that?
Well, we
Did he look really good? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
He was so excited. I will tell you this. He was so excited to do it. I've never seen. I don't know Brad well, but the times I've seen him,
People are getting bored at home.
he was very excited to be there and do it.
Yeah.
And we did it on a stage. If you saw the film, it appears like it's on a train throughout the entire film, but we did it on a soundstage, which was great.
What did the pandemic do for you as a leader and how you run your business?
Well,
are there lasting impacts? I mean, I guess there has to be.
Tremendous lasting impacts. One of the things we did originally, the first thing we did was we built a testing site on the lot so that we could get back. And we were the first studio, both in television and film, to get back to work, because we had this testing facility right there, so it worked out really well. But then we also did, people weren't coming to people were coming to work, the production people were coming to work, and we kept the illnesses to a bare minimum. We didn't have much problem with it at that time, and we're still having a little bit of an issue every now and then, but not terribly. But what we did do for the office people, we started to do a monthly town hall, which we did over line. I made a very big mistake in that. I did it taking anonymous, unfiltered questions, which was great for a few months, and then got to be a little bit silly. Now we actually ask people who they are when they ask questions. We get much better questions now.
To get your phones and type that in. Don't ever do that with no.
Yeah, keep that in mind. And now, a long time ago, we said, it's time for people to come back to the office, and we asked them to come. Well, coming to the lot in Culver City is a terrific place to work. It's a really great place to work.
But it makes a difference if people aren't there.
It does make a difference if people aren't there. And for a while, it was pretty good, where you didn't have anybody walking in your door every day, 10 times a day. But now we're back to about 70% of people back to work now.
And you want them all back?
We want them all back, because there's a few things that are happening. One, it's a mentorship business. It's an apprenticeship business. If you don't work with people and you don't, Anton said it very well earlier.
Yeah.
If you're not working together, you're not learning, you're not experiencing. And is that really what you want with your life? To be sitting at home at a table with a computer staring you in the face?
No.
I don't think so, and I don't think most people do. There's not as many people, this is an opinion, but I believe there's not as many people who really want to stay home as the press seems to make it seem. There are very loud, very opinionated people who want to do that. But we've been pretty successful asking people to come back to the office.
Hey, you were talking about the importance of theaters and having movies in the theater, but I do wonder, Tony, like short format versus long format. Increasingly, I know when we have to put something on social media, we are set, give me 20 seconds, 30 seconds,
Yep.
That's it. That's all people in terms of attention span.
Right.
Now, obviously, by show of hands, people are going to the movies and they want to see something more than 30
Yep,
seconds.
yep.
But I think about Quibi, which launched,
At the exact wrong moment.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, founder, right?
Yep.
Well known. Meg Whitman as CEO, right? Launched like at the beginning of the pandemic or just after.
Right. April is when they launched.
And then tanked shortly after. And this whole idea of short format on your phone, mobile, it just seemed to how could it not work?
Yeah.
So what is your thinking about short format versus long?
You have to step back a little further than that. The question is really linear versus streaming. So linear meaning you watch an appointed time, and streaming you watch anytime as a broad construct. So linear, believe it or not, is still the #1 place where people watch television. By a large margin, your network is a linear network. And people say, well, that can't be. I say, well, what about the NFL? What about your local news? Anybody know what the #2 program on television today is?
Judge Judy?
Jeopardy.
Oh, Jeopardy.
Which is ours, by the way.
That's
We'll
close.
brag about that.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but you're right?
Yeah.
So what does that tell us?
Well, it's on a slight slow decline, and
Okay.
linear is on an upswing. More people are watching more television too. That's a good thing. It's telling us that the future is streaming. The future is people want to watch what they want, when they want, where they want, for the most part, and that will continue to evolve over time and eventually become the general way content is consumed.
What happens? We've had such an explosion in streaming, right? And you guys made a choice not to be. But I was thinking about,
we didn't.
Why?
We were going to talk about
so go ahead.
other ways of streaming. So we decided to do two different things. One is to be very strict on our strategy of not having a general entertainment
Right.
SVOD service, because if you violated that, people would say, well, if you passed on that product for your own service and you try to sell it to me, is that a good product? Now,
Right.
some of our competitors are thinking about doing that now, and I'm wondering how that's going to play out when they go through all the various outlets that our competitors have, and then you go to the market with it. I'm not sure that's going to work very well. But secondly, we do have two very targeted subscription video on-demand
you do.
services. Anime, Crunchyroll, almost 10 million subscribers, very profitable. We have another one called PureFlix, a family and faith channel, SVOD service, over almost a million subscribers now, and doing well. So
very, very specific,
Very
targeted
targeted,
audiences.
right,
And this is
exactly.
where you guys have been investing.
Yes.
Among some other areas. I mean,
India.
I mean,
Right.
I was thinking about where you guys have been investing. Kids,
Yeah,
family and
right.
faith. You talk about Crunchyroll.
Unscripted television.
India. Yeah. This is where the growth areas are.
Yes. Yes.
Which is the biggest growth? Is it India?
Well, India is the fastest growing economy in the world and the fastest growing country in the world, and you have to be there. It's
Yeah.
a tough bit. It's a 12.5-hour time difference.
Right.
Believe it or not, there's a half-hour difference. I don't know why, but there's a half-hour time
I know.
difference.
I've flown there.
Yeah,
I was messed up for
It's
days.
pretty crazy. But we're in the
You're
midst
in the midst of a big
merger,
Yeah.
which once it's done, we're going to merge our company into a public company there. We'll control it, and we'll be the #1 or #2 entertainment company in India, and have a by the way, a general entertainment subscription video service. We have 26 million subscribers already, and that'll grow pretty dramatically.
With it. You know, we're talking about different things that are going on. I'm thinking about Netflix and the ad-supported tier.
Starts today.
Yeah, it does start today. Like, do you, in some way, is there a monetization angle for you in that as part of it?
Well, yeah, we hope so. We think so. We're in negotiation with Netflix right now to allow the programming that they commission to be on their service. They have the right to put commercials in. The library product that they put on the service, they don't have permission to do that, and that's what we're negotiating right now.
Okay.
And I don't think too many companies have made a deal with. I think one or two have, but not too many.
Okay, but that's possible.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you about Netflix, my understanding is this Thanksgiving they're going to release Glass Onion. It's a Knives Out story. It's the sequel to Knives Out in select theaters for a week before offering it to subscribers. So there's like this fluid thing.
Yeah,
like, what does that mean?
It's really interesting. You know, if you look at Uncharted, which is a film, and by the way, Uncharted is a PlayStation intellectual property. We now have.
That's a big.
We now have 10 or 11 additional projects with PlayStation intellectual property.
It's good to be part of Sony.
Absolutely, and we have several projects with Sony Music as well, which we never did before. But Uncharted was the first film, the first or second, I think it was the first film that Netflix got through our Pay One deal that I mentioned a while ago.
Yeah.
And that film is doing about the same audience as a film that they paid $200 million to make. So, you know, our pitch to some of these streamers is that put your films in the theaters first, and then market them in the theaters, and then put them on your service, and they'll have a cultural impact.
Are they listening?
Not yet. Not yet.
That's the next meeting.
Yeah.
We've got a few minutes left here. How do you think about growth going forward?
Well, look, I think television and film are great businesses to be in production, but we have to expand the base of our business, and that's what we're doing, all the things you just mentioned. We're getting kids animation, unscripted, our expansion of our business in India, our focus on the anime business. The anime audience, those of you who had kids between 13 and 30, you know the anime audience is unbelievably.
I had no idea.
Unbelievably passionate. You know, there was the Anime Expo in LA in June, had I think 300,000 people go to it, half of them wearing costumes. I went into the convention center just to see the activity, and it scared me. I thought it was so crowded. It was so crowded, and the costumes, people with swords and all kinds of other things.
Did you walk out with a costume?
I did not walk out with a costume, but we can get you one if you want to go
I would
next
love
year.
a costume.
All right, great. But it's a tremendously passionate audience, and growing around the world.
And like I said, it goes these segments that you're going after, right? Niche, but it's very devoted audiences.
Exactly. That's the key. Passionate audiences, communities of interest.
Right.
That's a phrase that everybody uses, but passion in that community of interest is really what's important.
Where do I want to go with a few minutes? I have a couple of questions that I've been asking everybody. Oh, there's a question. Yeah. Oh, thank you, guys.
Want me to read it for you?
Yeah, could you?
Does the loss of DVD, VHS revenue explain the epidemic of sequels and safe blockbuster bets in cinema and streaming? No. Because a lot of the revenue coming from DVD or VHS is now coming through an electronic sell-through, because we sell films to our audience through Roku and through Apple TV and through a bunch of other places, or rent through those same processes. And the margin on those sales is much better than the margin on a DVD. So it's actually a pretty good business. So those two concepts you put together don't really have anything to do with each other.
I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And you can look at me and say, like, shoot daggers if you want. But do you think, because you sell to everybody, right?
We try, yeah.
And a lot of different platforms. Do you think that there's going to be some kind of fallout in streaming? Because there's just so much out there.
Well, there's going to be consolidations, no doubt.
Okay.
And you know that the primary streamers have said they're not going to raise their spending tremendously now, but they're still in the midst of this absolutely aggressive war to get subscribers. And that's going to go on for a couple, 3 more years, we think, I hope. Maybe 5 more years, I'm hoping.
Good for you guys.
Great, really good for us.
Bring it on.
Really good for us.
But at some point, right?
Well, just like every other business, they consolidate over time, because not everybody can survive. And they're throwing so much money at this to establish themselves that once they get to that point of consolidation and stasis or stability, you know, the business will be fine. They'll all start to be profitable, we hope.
Right. All right. I'm equal, or I'm fair, so I'm going to ask you these 2 questions because I asked them of my other 2 keynotes. Question every leader should be asking themselves today when it comes to their customers.
Well, is your approach to the market aligned with the way the market is buying your product? That's the most important question that we have.
Understand that.
Yeah.
Why? What is something you think we should all keep an eye on for clues about trends that may impact the growth and direction of our world? And it could be anime costumes or. No.
I think it's much deeper than that. I think there's so much going on in the world today.
There's.
You know, just to be aware and to make sure that you're objective and not get into the echo chamber of listening to one point of view. If you listen to one point of view, you are going to be in big trouble over time. We were talking about this earlier. You have to get out of the echo chamber.
Amen on that. Last question. If you have 20 minutes of found time in any given workday, how would you spend it to further grow your business and strategy?
Well, I try to go, if I have some time, and I actually have more than 20 minutes at a time to go and talk to people around the business.
You do.
By the way, walking around the lot is just a great experience, and hope you'll come out sometime and do that.
I would love to do that.
But it's, you know, walking around and talking to people is really where you find out what's going on in your business.
I lied. One last question. Popeyes or M&M's?
Boy, they're both tough. I think M&M's. They're more accessible.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.